Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. We will be taking a look at new Nintendo Switch. 2 game price and feature leaks appeared. So there are 2 different Nintendo Switch 2 focus stories that I want to cover with you all today. One of which having to deal with the price point for this Nintendo Switch 2 software. Once again, because we now have another known leak account online suggesting that things are going up in the Nintendo Switch 2 generation. But I want to unpack how likely it is to see this across the board, with every first party piece of Nintendo software, or if it's saved for some of the bigger projects and not just a blanket across the board type of update for the most part. And then we have to dive into a new patent that has been discovered online that could suggest that Nintendo is planning some interesting things when it comes to voice capabilities or their online services for Nintendo Switch 2 and the new version of Nintendo Switch Online and going forward is the assumption I am making when looking at this patent. So we'll get on the same page with all this info. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunrow Nation if you're new here and want to. First, kick it off by highlighting a tweet over from the Central Leaks account where you can see a conversation going on about some price increases in Latin America on Nintendo Switch software. And a response from somebody saying is, because Switch 2 is launching soon, and Central Leaks account response, Switch 2 games will be even more expensive, $70. And while that's not a confirmed price point, I do believe it's pretty obvious at this point that we are going to see Nintendo go to that, because even in their current generation of games for the Switch, we saw them do that with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And Nintendo, when directly asked about price point, has stated numerous times that they price things on a case-by-case basis. And you can see that. And while you can say Nintendo prices it based off of what they think a game is worth, I actually don't think that that's necessarily what goes into that decision. But rather, how well is this franchise? Can it justify enough people to go out and spend the full price, $60? Or do we elevate to $70 with games like Tears of the Kingdom, or do we discount and really do a pretty good value for fans of the Metroid franchise like we saw that, you could say? I think you could say easily the Metroid Prime 1 Remastered has far more work, looks more impressive visually, and is overall more content complete or more enhanced and reworked than games like Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, most recently sold at a $6 price point, and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, a 3DS port, also up-res, given some visual, updates and things like that, but also sold at that $60 price point and a beautiful game. Like Metroid Prime Remastered, a full from the ground up rework of the lighting, the textures, and numerous different aspects of the game. Controls, all of this different stuff. $40 from Nintendo, because that's what they believe they could obviously sell to the most amount of copies successfully. And so I do believe that Nintendo will have some of this case by case basis price point rolling forward. The question is 70, truly the new 60. And I think that for the most part, the answer to that is yes. Will there be some exceptions? Quite possibly, yes. But your next Mario Kart, your next 3D mainline Mario game, your next Legend of Zelda, anything title that comes to the Switch to that's a Zelda game will be 70 in my opinion. Next mainline Kirby brand, new Donkey Kong, the next Smash Bros. We're all going to 70 for those. No questions asked where. I think there's maybe a little bit of an argument to be made for the $60 price. Point sticking around has to do more with, let's say, Mario sports games, some smaller spin-off titles. Princess Peach Showtime type of game in the Switch 2's generation may sell for something like a $60 price point instead of $70. I can still see Nintendo keeping that price point around for certain titles that are not near as ambitious. And definitely just obviously from the trailers a more simple project. But I do think that 70 is going to be the new baseline for everything that is a true next-G version of a beloved household franchise. In fact, I'm curious to see what Nintendo will do with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond if it does indeed get a Switch 2 specific version like I'm thinking it will, because they might actually price that game at $70 for the Switch 2 version and $60 for the Switch 1 version. So we could even have some cases where a cross-generational game like that, because of the enhancements, you're paying $10 more. But obviously we have to wait and see for sure what Nintendo does with the price point. But just considering the fact that Tears of the Kingdom sold incredibly well at over 22 million units successfully at that $70 price point in the current Switch generation. And you know Nintendo doesn't like to be outpriced by Sony or Microsoft. And both of them are selling their games at $70 for their big first party content. I think clearly Nintendo will indeed jump on this train. And we will have that standard $70 price point for the most parts and in the Switch 2 generation, with some fallback $60 options occasionally. Just like we see Nintendo kind of do some $50 price point games every now and then as well. You look at games like Mario and Donkey Kong that was sold at $50. Nintendo Switch Sports, actually, it was at $39.99, I think, or $50, with like that strap band that they included for the soccer game. But fluctuation to be expected. But in general, expect to pay more for next generation games, just like we're doing on the other current gen platforms in the generation of gaming we are in. So from there, I actually want to shift gears and talk about Nintendo Switch Online and some new features that could be planned for this service. As we talk about Nintendo heading into the next generation of their consoles, because I don't know about you guys, I am certainly expecting to see some level of a revamp of what this service offers as a whole. And I think that a lot of the things that are expected in modern online gaming will now be supported, such as party, chat, the ability to message friends, whether that be through voice or text. I think it's all going to be included there. And I think that you will have some integration with your phone app still, but hopefully just as an optional accessory and not like the only way to talk to gamers online, that you are on your friends list. So hopefully Nintendo does something a little bit more simple than friend codes also, and just goes with usernames, but that may still be intact, it may not. We'll see. But one thing that is, of course, a hot button issue for a lot of people is that voice chat component. And it does appear that while this doesn't say that this is direct party chat with your friends or anything like that, there's at least some relatively recent patents that suggest Nintendo is using this technology from a proximity standpoint. And the immediate project that pops into my mind is actually that a Nintendo Switch online game test program that we saw them run towards the end of 2024, because that game on paper to me seems like it would be a perfect fit for the kind of technology we are talking about here. But shout outs to RGT85. I saw him cover this over on his channel. And we have from Hen Hero, the person who put this out on Twitter, where it started making the rounds where it says you future. Official Nintendo multiplayer games may include proximity chat according to this patent, and you can see kind of a graph of somebody just around in an open world, and there's a long explanation of what this is. But all you need to do instead of reading through all that is just understand the fact that if you are near a certain person that has a microphone in the game, you would hear their voice. And if you are far away from that person, you would gradually not hear their voice anymore. AKA proximity chat, meaning just like in real life. If I'm talking and I'm nowhere near you, you're not going to be able to hear me compared to if I'm in a reasonable distance from you. You are going to be able to hear me. So that's the idea behind it, and I think that these massive multiplayer online games are entirely what this technology is designed for. And that playtest program really makes me think that they're probably using it for that. I do think that they will use it for other multiplayer focused games as well. I'm not even entirely convinced of that playtest program. It is even a finalized product that's coming to Nintendo Switch Online. It very well could be. It felt very either simple or unfinished. Or maybe just Nintendo was literally testing the servers on how they could support a ton of players on their own end, and built kind of a simple game to throw together where you're lighting up the beacons and stuff like that. We can't show footage of it, unfortunately, but I had some hands-on time with that game, and it's just one of those weird projects. Maybe it materializes into a big fun game to really into one day that's just thrown into NSO as a member benefit, or Nintendo is working on some big stuff for connecting players on their next generation hardware, and they needed to do it on a broad scale test while they were still supporting the current Switch family of systems. And so they put out that playtest program, and now we're seeing recent patents published as recently as February. So very recent. That does outline some of those voice chat features where when you're around people, they're going to be able to hear you. And I just believe that not only are they going to implement that this console generation, but also the ability to hop into a room with people on your friends list, and I'll have a party chat together up to like 8 or 12 players simultaneously, something like that in a perfect world. If you want my 2 cents on it, I think they should just use Discord. And all of the different consoles could implement Discord as their primary chat function. And then it takes all the responsibility off of fielding any of the content from Nintendo and other companies, and puts it on Discord, because that's an optional app that you just have to agree to it being utilized for your voice chat and your set. I don't know. That seems like the simple solution to me. And we've already talked about patents where you can do things like share your screen through Nintendo Switch Online, or I guess NSO. Not specifically outlined, but rather just like that share screen ability. We've seen patents for just like what PlayStation does, where you have the ability to share your gameplay with another player. I'm expecting that to be in the next generation of Nintendo Switch Online features. And I just think that overall, Nintendo's going to dive into a lot more of these social connected gameplay ideas that come along with modern games in 2025 and beyond. And they are launching a new start of a new console generation. So clearly these things need to be there day one and going forward. And I think this is just yet more proof that voice chat idea is something that will be heavily focused on in the Switch. 2, not to mention, it's probably most likely that C button is some kind of community hub that pops up when you press it. And that's actually how you are easily able to chat and connect with all of your different friends from an online perspective for Nintendo Switch 2. But let me know in the comments down below what you thought of both of today's different stories. Are you any more or less convinced that $70 is the price point for a Nintendo Switch? 2 games going forward, and how do you feel about that? And what are you feeling about NSO and the future of its service as a whole? Do you think Nintendo will indeed give us features like voice chat, proximity, chat in games that are MMO that you're around somebody and you able to hear them? Are you a fan of features like that? Do you think we're ultimately going to see them materialize? Or do you think more than likely this is just one of those patents that Nintendo's working on? Some kind of idea behind the scenes, but it's not necessarily tied to that voice party chat functionality at the end of the day. So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Thanks for watching Switchverse. Please leave a like and comment your favorite game on the list and subscribe.